speakers to come up, answer your questions. One thing that come on up here, everyone, please. And you can shoot questions to whomever you want. Just one word to Governor Pritzker. File all the lawsuits that you want. The fact is, this president has shown over and over again he treats them like lousy pieces of paper. My friends behind me here have just outlined very concrete steps that Governor Pritzker can and must take right now. Lawsuits are pieces of paper to this clown in the White House. We need firmer action out of you, Governor Pritzker. With that, we'll take your questions.
¿Puedes subir un poquitico el micrófono?
First, to make clear, as Commander-in-Chief, speaking directly to those who are under his command, not to report if he is declaring these orders illegal. So that is one more thing specifically in word. Indeed, to then support with the massive legal team that he has as governor to support the individuals that do then refuse the orders, to do more than file a lawsuit in federal court, to actually support the individuals who comprise the Guard, making legal resources available to them, supporting the networks that are doing that work in connection with them.
I think if we support them, if the governor, the state, the city supports them, even these legal cases on the ground for service members mean so little. That's not who they're seeing when they report to duty, and that's not who they get their orders from. And that's why it's so important that the governor speak to his Guard members, that he lets also Guard members in other states know that we will support them, that Illinois will be a leader in supporting these service members that refuse to comply with illegal orders. I mean, that has to be fundamental. It's just so basic, and yet we have forgotten about the people on the ground. And we're asking people to center these service members and give them educations on their rights. Support them by doing GI rights trainings within an Illinois National Guard. Support them by building up a legal task force around military rights within the state of Illinois. Those are things that we don't have right now, and we are scrapping. The National Lawyers Guild, the Military Law Task Force, is overwhelmed with calls from individuals on the ground. But they're just a small organization. We are overwhelmed with the number of service members that are concerned about these orders. But we are just a small organization. We're asking for our broader community to step up and support these service members in complying and exercising their rights.
Yeah, could you or Brad elaborate a little more on that? What are the numbers we're seeing in terms of, especially in DC and in LA, people who are doing conscientious?
I don't have those numbers to report. I just know that both the GI Rights Hotline and the Military Law Task Force, from all reports we've gotten, have been overwhelmed with correspondences.
I want to add, again, I can't speak to specific numbers of COs. I would recommend contacting the Center on Conscience and War, based out of Washington, D.C. But conscientious objection is just one, and perhaps even the smallest form that resistance takes. And so that needs to be kept in mind. These members of these Guard units, other military members, there's other way that they can withdraw their participation. We heard of Guard members maybe taking an extra long time in the bathroom, maybe every hour, maybe multiple times an hour. there's ways that people who are in uniform can withdraw their consent and participation, and they need support for the spectrum of resistance.
So the question for people that couldn't hear was what the consequences are if somebody is to follow an unlawful order. And really that depends on the order, it depends on the specific circumstances. There are cases, as Aaron referenced, where people have been tried for committing war crimes. And the fact that they were following orders was not a defense. Now, in this circumstance, we don't know what exact orders people are going to be receiving. We don't know what form that resistance will look like, what refusal those orders might look like. So the exact consequences is hard to predict. There's no way to really say that clearly. But as it's been raised here, the consequences go beyond just the legal consequences. There's legal consequences for the state, for the federal agencies, and there are legal consequences for the individual service members. But I would really, again, lift up the voices of veterans who have made choices, who have followed orders that they've then spent years, and in some circumstances decades, regretting. Where service members have just followed orders and now decades later dealt with those consequences on their own psyche, their own mental health, their own everyday lives. And again, if troops come to the city of Chicago and people are following those orders, this is going to have devastating consequences of us having the thought of having MRAPs and tanks and assault rifles, armed, uniformed soldiers parading through these streets is going to have serious consequences. So it's important to think through not just the legal consequences, but all the consequences that could result by Trump's actions, and both the positive and negative impacts that service members can take, because each and every service member has a choice about what they do.
I just want to add, historically, the individuals that overwhelmingly are prosecuted are enlisted, lower enlisted service members. It's not officers, it's not generals, and it's not governors and presidents. It is the individuals on the ground that end up in prison for following orders that are illegal, unjust. And we're asking for leadership to change that. We're asking our governor to stand up and take a lead in protecting service members and encouraging them to follow the law as he has declared it. That's what we're asking.
So then on the flip side, what are the consequences for the folks who are resisting potentially unlawful orders from
And to repeat the question for people who couldn't hear, the flip side of the question of what are the consequences for people who are refusing orders that could be unlawful. So it really, again, depends. It really is hard to predict, and it's impossible to predict, frankly. What could happen is people can face charges under the military law and can face court-martial for refusing an order. That's possible. It's also possible that people can refuse orders and not be charged. And again, I believe what the service members and veterans of About Face are calling on the governor to say, do everything within your legal, political power to support those people who may be refusing orders, to prevent the possibility of those people facing legal consequences. But there is always a defense if somebody is being charged if their actions were in fact lawful. So that is what's important to keep in mind, that if there's an unlawful order and somebody resists that unlawful order, that gives them a defense. The law is their defense under that circumstance. And no guarantees can be promised as to what comes out of that, but that gives them a defense should that come to be.
And it's also up to the community to support these courageous service people who disobey illegal orders. And that's why it's important for people to come out if our city is invaded by illegal orders issued by the president, to come here, to come out on the day that they are deployed, 5 p.m., right here at Federal Plaza. If the deployment is after 3 p.m., then we will be here at 5 p.m. the day after. It's the duty not just of the governor, not just of other politicals, but also our community to reach out, to speak to those service members and say, we have your back if you do not follow illegal, unconstitutional orders. That's our duty as Chicagoans.